Alright, we are going to roast some coffee. You can see I've got my frying pan here, and I've got it turned on to about 5 on my stove. I've preheated it, so the pan is nice and warm now. I've got about a half a cup of green coffee beans. I order mine online from greenbeanery.ca. There's also coffee.ca here in the Ottawa area where you can go and pick them up locally. Basically, you just put your beans in your pan, and roasting coffee in the pan is basically the same rules as making popcorn. And basically what that means is you just keep it moving, keep it moving, keep it moving. If you don't keep it moving, you'll scorch your beans. You want them roasted, you don't want them scorched. Now, it's been quite a while since I've roasted coffee in the frying pan. I started it out this way. I didn't do it excuse me, I didn't do it too many times in the frying pan. I moved right on to roasting in the corn popper, which we'll do another episode to show how that works. I then roasted in the corn popper for about 2 years. Works very, very well that way. I did that for about 2 years until I finally broke down and bought myself a proper coffee roaster. And in fact, you may be able to hear a background noise, a slight background noise. Sounds kind of like a vacuum cleaner. And that's my coffee roaster going away, or working away. I'm roasting a batch in that right now, and I figured I'd come over here and do a video of how to roast coffee in the frying pan. So we're just moving it around, moving it around. You can see there's some of the beans are starting to get a little bit brown here, but nothing too serious at this point. You will notice very shortly one of the hazards of roasting coffee, whether it's in a pan or a corn popper or even in a commercial coffee roaster, is that it generates a lot of smoke. And here we've got smoke starting up now. This is definitely not something that you want to do in the house with the doors closed. It's a very nice spring day right now. I've got the windows open. Otherwise, I would be at risk of my fire alarm, my smoke detector going off. Yeah, you can just see that it's browning up a little bit better now. Very few of the beans are getting nice and brown. Another thing that you will notice as this progresses, in addition to lots of smoke, there's lots of chaff that's generated by roasting coffee. The chaff is basically the equivalent of the skins on peanuts. Coffee beans have similar skins on them, and as the beans dry out when they are being roasted, the skins flake off the outside, and that's actually what generates a lot of the smoke, is the skins burning up. So you get a lot of smoke, a lot of chaff. It's one of the benefits of roasting with a hot air corn popper, actually, is that the blowing air blows the chaff away before it has time to burn. But it creates a heck of a mess in the area where you are roasting. Typically, 9 months out of the year, or 8 or 9 months, I have my commercial coffee roaster in the shed, and I do my roasting in the shed typically. For a few months over the winter, it's too cold to operate in the shed, so I put it in the basement, and the odd time, even my commercial consumer grade coffee roaster will still set off my smoke detector. Alright, you can see things are browning up really nicely here. Some of the beans aren't so well developed with the roast as the other ones are. That's one of the downsides of roasting in the frying pan, I find, is you don't get a very even roast. I find it very difficult to get an even roast. Even though the big commercial roasters are pretty much like a giant frying pan with paddles that stir it around. There's automated paddles that move back and forth, kind of like what I'm using here, only it's all an automated machine. But for some reason I've never been able to get an even roast in a frying pan. But that's okay. You can you can have a very nice coffee that's a variably roasted coffee. In fact, some people with their consumer grade home roasters, they will do a variety of roasts, a light roast, a medium roast, and a dark roast in 3 different batches, and then they will create a blend out of those 3 roasts to give you a variety of flavors in the coffee that you're drinking. So when you're doing it this way and you get an uneven roast, it kind of simulates the same effect as doing your own blends. So what I will do here is I will let the darker beans go to a full roast stage and try to make sure that all the lighter ones are at least done as far as a light roast, or perhaps a medium roast. If you're in the United States, Sweet Maria's, if you Google it, I think it's just sweetmarias.com. I believe that's the place where you can order green beans online if you don't have a local place where you can pick them up. This is coming very nicely here now. You'll see, keeping things moving, keeping things moving. Some of the beans are getting very dark on the outside. The oil is developing. The oil is coming out to the surface on those beans. As it gets darker, you got to keep it moving more and more. So we really got to keep this moving now. Whoops, we really got to keep this moving. It's almost going to be done. You can hear the popping. You can hear the beans popping, kind of like popcorn. You have in roasting coffee, you have what's called first pop, which sounds more like Rice Krispies crackling. And then you have second pop, which sounds almost more like popcorn popping. And or first crack and second crack, you'll sometimes hear it called. And that's how you tell how far along your roast is developed. You know, light, medium, or dark roast. You can judge that in part by the look and the smell, but also by the sound of the roast as it's going along. You can hear, it's harder to distinguish first and second pop right now with all the noise of me moving this around in the pan and so forth. But there we go. Alright, I think this is probably done. I'm going to turn this off. Just give you a final look at it there. Very nice roast in that pan. Now I got to get it into something quick to dry it out. And I forgot to get that ready. Stay there. I forgot to have that ready ahead of time. You put it into a colander like this. And you keep it moving around like this. Nice and cool. If you had a broken hair dryer that has the heating element that no longer works, you could aim that on here to blow cool air through the beans. That's the way the cooling cycles work, or the cooling cycle on my consumer popper, or consumer roaster anyway. So you just want to keep that moving to cool them down as quickly as you can. If you wanted to put your colander in the freezer ahead of time to make it nice and cool, that would be very beneficial. Take the beans out, keep it moving. Ooh, they are still very hot to the touch. You can see all the chaff coming out the bottom. See all the chaff coming out the bottom there, and that's about it. We are done.